Hey there, so glad you're here. This is Reddit Stories Podcast. Relax, you're safe here. Here's our first story. Karen loses it and walks out of the restaurant mid-waffle. A couple years back, I went on a few dates with this girl I'll call Elle. She was cool, artsy, confident, loved weird humor. One night, she suggested we grab dinner at this diner she said was hard to explain but fun. I asked what kind of food they had, and she just said, "Don't look it up, trust me." That should have been my first clue. I showed up in a button-down, thinking we were doing a chill, maybe retro vibe. She showed up in boots and a hoodie with cartoon waffles on it. I probably should have realized I was overdressed for what we were walking into. The place was loud and packed, with metal booths and neon signs everywhere. It looked like a vintage diner collided with a theater camp. I didn't think much of it until our server came over and opened with something weirdly aggressive. No hello, no can I get you started. Just immediate sass, directed mostly at me. Meanwhile, he was all smiles for Elle. Complimented her outfit, her energy, even her pancake order. Every time he came to our table, she got treated like royalty, and I got treated like a regrettable decision. I laughed it off at first, thinking maybe the guy was just having a rough shift. But when I looked around, I realized everyone was getting roasted in some way or another. Some guy in the corner got called Walmart Elvis. Another woman got her drink dropped off with what looked like a mock eye roll. That's when it clicked. It was one of those themed performance art type of diners, where the staff is rude on purpose. It's part of the experience, apparently. Elle obviously knew. I didn't. She was clearly enjoying watching me scramble to figure it out. And honestly, once I figured it out, it was kind of hilarious. A little unsettling, but funny. Then came Karen. And not the usual kind. This one looked like she had stepped straight out of a boutique yoga studio. Mauve workout set, huge motivational water bottle, designer tote bag, and a hat that said blessed or be kind or something of that vibe. She came in with her teenage daughter and immediately started looking around like something already didn't meet her standards. They got seated a few booths away, and not long after, things started to go sideways. I didn't catch the beginning, but I started hearing Karen's voice getting sharper. She was saying something about not appreciating the tone and not wanting her daughter exposed to that kind of behavior. From the way it all escalated, I figured the server had made some kind of sarcastic comment that didn't land, but I can't say for sure. It was clear she wasn't enjoying the vibe. The server tried to explain that it was all part of the experience, but she wasn't having it. She stood up and made this big show of saying they were leaving, that the place wasn't funny, and that respect matters, no matter what the concept is. She also mentioned something about reporting the restaurant or posting about it online. Her daughter looked like she wanted to disappear. They passed by our table on the way out. Karen looked right at Elle, then at me, and shook her head. It was subtle, but very judgy, like we were somehow complicit in the downfall of society just for sitting there and not being offended. Elle just smiled and kept eating. We stayed for the full meal. The food was average. The vibe was chaos. The experience? Honestly, one of the most memorable dates I've ever had. Elle tipped the server well. I didn't get a single compliment the entire night, but I kind of loved it. We went back a few more times after that. I wonder if places like that still exist. I should check where I could take my wife to one. I live in a quiet suburb now where everything is sleek cafes with soft playlists and perfectly arranged pastries. Everyone's polite. Everyone feels curated. Every now and then, when a server hands me my drink with a polite smile, I catch myself half expecting them to follow it up with an insult. I miss that diner. And I still wonder if Karen ever found a restaurant quiet and respectful enough to meet her standards. I hope the eggs were organic, the menu listed macros, the alkaline water was electrolyte enhanced, and the server greeted her with a firm handshake and 15 grams of protein. That sounds like my dream restaurant, to be honest. I'd rather be lovingly insulted over cheap fries than fake smiled at while paying $13 for toast and aesthetic cafe decor. And Elle, she had great taste, in diners and dates. Wherever life took you both, and now with your wife, I hope you're still finding ways to laugh through the weirdness. I get that it was all part of the theme, but I can also see how someone like Karen might not have known what she was walking into. Not everyone finds that kind of humor comfortable, especially with a kid around. We all have different boundaries for what feels respectful in public. Doesn't make her a villain, just someone who values a different kind of dining experience.
I don't know about you, but I don't go anywhere to be disrespected.
Ma'am, the disrespect is free. The waffles cost extra.
Oh, silence, Reddit boy. I demand basic courtesy.
Sorry, we ran out. We do have sarcasm in stock, though. Want it warm or iced?
Silence, you fool.
Today I messed up by offering Karen a free sample. I work at a bakery stall inside a larger grocery chain. One of those setups where the glass display case always has something shiny and sweet up front to lure people in. It's a decent gig. Quiet early mornings, regulars who know your name, and occasional weirdos who make the day a bit more memorable than you'd like. Every Saturday we do free samples, bite-sized pieces of whatever we're trying to push that week. It draws in kids, tired parents, curious retirees, sometimes even the gym crowd after their protein bars fail to satisfy. Usually people just grab a piece, nod politely, and move on. Then there's this one woman, mid-50s maybe, big sunglasses, too much perfume, and a tiny dog in like a leopard print sling bag. She had the kind of look that made you pause, a little too put together for a grocery run, like someone who dressed up to feel in control of something, even if it was just the cereal aisle. Anyway, today's special was our seasonal guava cheese rolls. Not exactly your classic cinnamon bun, but the manager wanted to try something tropical and trendy, whatever that meant. The woman, who I'll call Karen now, stood in front of the tray of guava cheese roll samples like she was considering a stock investment. I gave her the usual line, told her they were free to try. After an awkward pause, she picked one up and inspected it like she expected it to come with a label. Then she popped it in her mouth. I was already dealing with a customer at the register, but I could feel her still standing there. I glanced back, and sure enough, she hadn't moved. She looked dissatisfied. Not in a dramatic way, just this very calculated, tight-lipped disapproval, like the roll had personally insulted her family. After a long moment, she asked if there were any salty samples. I explained nicely that we only had the guava cheese rolls out today. She frowned like I had suggested she eat sand. She didn't walk away. Instead, she stood there and picked up 4 more pieces, just casually, one after the other. Then she launched into a monologue about how she had traveled through South America and knew what real guava tasted like. Said something about how these rolls were missing the sharpness or whatever. I didn't even respond, just kinda half smiled and nodded. I had never actually had fresh guava myself, but apparently that made me part of the problem too. What I didn't realize was that this was just the beginning. About 10 minutes later, I saw her again. She had circled around and was heading back toward the bakery, but now she had a can of spray whipped cream in one hand. She approached the tray like it was a do-it-yourself project and, without hesitation, gave one of the samples a generous squirt of cream. Right there, in front of God and everyone. For real. She didn't even look at me. She just said something along the lines of, "There, now it makes sense," and walked away like she had solved a problem no one knew existed. As she turned the corner, she called back over her shoulder, "Have your manager try one with the whipped cream. He'll understand." I stared at the tray, now dotted with what looked like foamy frosting puddles, and realized I'd have to toss the whole thing out. Not just the sprayed ones, all of it. Can't risk it. I started cleaning up, biting back every sarcastic comment in my head, when one of the supervisors walked by and asked what happened. Karen is what happened. Now, here's the thing. When you try to explain something like that out loud, it doesn't sound real. You hear yourself say, "A woman poured whipped cream." "A woman put whipped cream on the guava samples," and even you don't believe it. But my manager just nodded like he had seen worse. I think that's the true sign of working retail too long. Nothing shocks you, just slightly rearranges your day. That would have been enough for one story, but no. Karen came back for a 3rd time. This time she had questions about the guava rolls on display. She wanted to know if they were organic, gluten-free, or part of some cultural recipe that had actual history behind it. I told her they were just pastries, no ancient secrets, just guava, cheese, and puff pastry. She said that was disappointing. Then she asked if she could get a fresh batch, unsliced, and with less of the pink part. I asked if she meant the guava. She said yes, but wanted it to still taste guava adjacent. I had no idea what that meant. Neither did my coworker, who was now silently watching this play out like a soap opera he hadn't meant to tune into. At one point, we made eye contact, both trying to decide whether to laugh or brace for impact. It felt like we were teetering between customer service and survival mode. Right before she finally left, she made one last pit stop. So we had already put out a new tray by then. Fresh batch, no toppings, no surprises. A sweet older couple had just finished trying a few samples and were quietly discussing whether to buy a box. Karen passed by, glanced into their cart, and said something like, "That's a lot of sugar for one basket, but you do you." Then kept walking, like she hadn't just passive-aggressively body-checked their grocery choices. The couple looked stunned. I quietly offered them a coupon and an apology at the same time. Karen didn't buy anything from our stall. After all of that, not a roll, not a cookie, not even a discounted bagel. But as she turned to leave the store, she stopped and looked back at the now empty sample tray. She asked if we'd be putting out anything more balanced next week. I said maybe. She smiled. Not a nice smile, more like a CEO pretending to be human. Then she said, "Tell your boss the whipped cream helped," and disappeared down the cereal aisle. The funniest part? She never asked for a discount. She never asked to speak to a manager. She just came in, mildly terrorized our display tray, and left behind the vague feeling that something very odd had just happened. There's a rhythm to working retail. It's part comedy, part endurance test, and part accidental sociology experiment. Some people want a free bite. Some want a whole experience. And some, like our whipped cream warrior, just want to leave their mark. I don't know why she needed that moment. Maybe she felt ignored all week. Maybe the dog in her bag was judging her. Maybe she just missed being unpredictable. But I've started putting the sample trays a little further back now, just in case someone brings their own toppings. Look, guava cheese rolls are a confusing combo on their own. Sometimes you need a little extra help to balance the flavors. Whipped cream wasn't that wild of a choice. To be honest, she's not wrong. Guava can be one note without contrast. Maybe she's just got a refined palate, and y'all aren't ready for her vision. Karen, you brought your own whipped cream to a bakery sample table?
It needed contrast and vision. You wouldn't understand.
You sprayed whipped cream on a stranger's pastry tray like it was your own personal cooking show.
I improved it. Just ask the empty tray.
Yeah, well, remind me to keep you away from the rotisserie chicken. Am I the jerk for not singing happy birthday at the office? So I work at a medium-sized office. Around 40 of us split across 2 floors. Pretty typical setup. Cubicles, passive-aggressive fridge notes, occasional birthday cake in the break room. The job itself is fine. The culture leans a little too family vibes for me, but I keep my head down and get my work done. There's one person in particular who drives that energy. I'll call her Karen, because of course I will. She's been with the company forever. Mid-50s, loud necklaces, owns at least 7 cardigans with glitter on them. She kind of self-appointed herself the office morale captain, which wouldn't be a problem if her definition of morale didn't include things like mandatory group hugs, spiritual affirmations before team meetings, and full-blown productions for birthdays. I'm not kidding. She even brings in props. Last year, she had us throw confetti shaped like smiley faces. Another time, she made everyone wear party hats made out of recycled HR forms. Every single birthday gets the same treatment. Balloons taped to monitors, a sheet cake with someone's name spelled wrong, and a group performance of Happy Birthday so dramatic you'd think we were auditioning for a community musical. Now, some people love it. Some fake it. Some quietly endure it. Then there's Rob. He sits 2 cubicles over from me. Real low-key guy. Always smells like green tea and hand sanitizer. He types softly and once apologized because his stapler made too much noise. You get the picture. When Karen announced that Rob's birthday was coming up, she got this gleam in her eye like she was planning a surprise party for a child star. She started assigning roles for the celebration. She told Christina from accounting to lead the second verse of Happy Birthday, the one where people go, "How old are you now?" and told me I should harmonize from the back. I wished she was joking, but she wasn't. She even made a group chat titled Bob's Big Birthday Bash and sent us daily countdown messages. Stuff like, 3 days until we shower Bob with the frequency of joy. Get ready to get ready to rise. It was a lot. The wild part? His real name is Robert, but he introduces himself as Rob. It says Rob in his email signature. But Karen's been calling him Bob since she started 6 months ago, and he's never corrected her. Probably just to avoid the energy of it all. Honestly, that detail alone says everything. It was less about Rob's actual happiness and more about Karen being the cruise director of her own party ship. Now, I like Rob. We're not best friends or anything, but he's a good guy. And from everything I've ever observed, he's not into that kind of attention. He never joins the group lunches, never opens the birthday cards passed around the office, just kind of smiles and puts them in a drawer. So when the big day came and Karen was rounding everyone up like a cruise director on espresso, I just stayed at my desk. She peeked into my cubicle and asked if I weren't coming. I told her I had a report due by EOD and needed to finish it. She gave me this tight smile and said, "We're all busy, but energy is a choice." I nodded and turned back to my screen. They did the whole thing without me. Loud singing that echoed down both floors, awkward clapping, and one of those giant sheet cakes from Costco with way too much frosting. Someone passed around a birthday card that looked like it had been signed by half the building, and at some point, Karen made him wear a birthday vibes sash thing. I stayed put. An hour later, Karen walked by with a plate of cake and placed it on my desk like a peace offering. Then she said something like, "We missed your presence. It really throws the energy off when people hold back. It was Bob's special day after all." I smiled at her, then said, "Rob," under my breath. But she didn't seem to hear it, or chose not to. I don't know. But here's the twist. The next day, Rob came by my desk, quietly. He looked a little sheepish and said, "Hey, thanks for not joining that whole thing yesterday. It's sweet of them, but kind of a lot for me. You're probably the only one who didn't make me feel like I had to perform." Then he kind of smiled and walked away. Later that day, Karen sent a company-wide email thanking everyone for making Bob's birthday one of the most uplifting celebrations we've had in a long time. At the end, she added something about how the real magic happens when we all show up with open hearts. Yikes, too corny for me. Since then, I haven't heard anything directly, but I get the sense that some of Karen's younger office babies have started looking at me a little weird, like I'm the cold emo introvert one. I wouldn't be surprised if she warned them not to lose their youthful spark like I did or something like that. That's totally something she would say with her whole hipster Karen vibe going on. Or maybe I'm just imagining it. Hard to tell sometimes in a place where everyone acts a little too much like coworkers or family. So, am I the jerk for not singing? Hey, if we don't harmonize with full hearts and summon the birthday spirits, how else is the universe supposed to recognize Bob's ascension? You skipped the ceremony, OP. Honestly, kinda giving killjoy. Karen was just trying to raise the vibration. You brought spreadsheets to a soul celebration. Not the jerk. You didn't ruin a birthday. You weren't being a stuck-up. Karen just didn't get to run her show the way she pictured it. Rob literally thanked you for not making a scene out of his day. That says everything. Not everyone wants to be spiritually uplifted at 3 p.m. in the office on a Tuesday. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stay quiet and skip the tambourine. So, Karen, OP didn't sing. Big deal, right?
It is a big deal. We were creating community resonance. OP was withholding joy.
OP was typing up a report.
And they typed through Bob's rebirth.
You just called him Bob again.
It's just easier to say, and it suits him better.
It even says Rob in his email signature.
Well, maybe Rob needs to work on his branding. How about that, Reddit boy?
That's all for now, but don't be blue. We'll be back soon with more stories for you. Remember to listen to Mr. Redder every night so your dreams will be wonderful like you are and bright. Now click this playlist, come follow along. We'll be right here. Until then, so long.